Tulsi Gabbard. I asked rhetorically, where's Tulsi been on all of this? It turns out during the Camp David meetings over the weekend when Trump huddled up, she had guard duty. So people were trying to make something of her not being there. She had National Guard duty. That's her official statement. That's what she said she was doing. That's why she wasn't at Camp David. That has been interpreted by other people as, well, Trump is icing her out. She doesn't have a seat at the table. Now, does anybody think that Donald Trump put Tulsi Gabbard in this position only to now ignore her 6 months into the job? Here's Trump on Air Force One, 2553. Here's what he said when asked about her specifically.
Mr. You've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon. But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
Yeah, so J.D. Vance defended Tulsi on X. I'm not going to read it all to you, but he said, I don't care what she said. J.D. Vance's point was that was back in March. A lot has changed since March. I don't know what that is. You don't know what that is. I'm not in the meetings. Tulsi says, by the way, publicly, she and the president have no daylight between them, and that her testimony in March is really not entirely different than what the president's already said. Again, I don't have any evidence, and I don't believe that there's daylight between Trump and Tulsi. And you shouldn't believe it either until you see evidence of it directly. Again, just because a talk show host says it, it doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean that another talk show host is right. But just be mindful of what motivates anybody. I come pure of heart here. I was joking earlier off the air. I was joking. I would love to pocket some of this money that I keep hearing. Anybody who wants to deal with Iran and the threat that Iran poses, I keep hearing that a lot of these people are bought and paid for. Fast Eddie, by whom? I don't know, but I would love some of the money. I really would. If anybody wants to give to me, I will say whatever you want. We have a lot of great sponsors here. Now, I try never to endorse anything that I don't believe in, and I think that's always been consistently the case. Everybody that has a sponsorship on this show, I use their product or believe in them and know them personally and recommend them to you. If there's anybody that would like to give me money for advocating taking out Iran's nuclear enrichment program, I would happily accept it, but I am at present not on the take that way. You, Ed, you're the executive producer. Anybody buying you off?
I'm not, but the phone lines are open. I mean, I'll hear it, of course. You're always willing to contribute to my pizza fund for the betterment of the world, okay?
Here's President Trump answering Caitlin Collins' question about our involvement, 2554.
Is there any guarantee that if the U.S. did get involved militarily, that a U.S. bomb could destroy Iran's nuclear program and facilities?
Shoot every day, or anything in life you done it. Look at you, right? There's no guarantee.
You think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program, or where's your assessment of that?
Well, I hope their program is going to be wiped out long before that, but they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
Did you hear the answer? Is anybody listening? Am I crazy? Is anybody listening to what the man just said? That was Donald Trump on Air Force One yesterday. Did you hear him? He just said, I hope their nuclear program is wiped out well before we would need to get involved. He just said it. And never one time has Donald Trump publicly said one word about toppling the government of Iran or regime change. Not one time. Now, the media has been telling you about the bombers, the different hardware we have, the bunker-busting bombs and our capability and what we can do. Of course, the media is drumming it up. And yes, the war hawks like Lindsey Graham have never seen a war they don't want to go hard charging in. I think that's very real. Do I think the military-industrial complex is a real thing? I absolutely do, folks. I do. Yes, I believe there are people like Dick Cheney who profit off of war. I think Iraq and Afghanistan were a buzzsaw that I now, in hindsight, and I was wrong about them, by the way. I've told you on this show, I come to you with great humility. I was wrong, stone cold wrong, to be led as a young man who had pride in country and was furious about the events of 9/11 And our leader, George W. Bush, for whom I voted twice, said, we're going to go get the terrorists. And I said, right on, 3,000 dead Americans, go get the bastards. George W. Bush and people like Colin Powell and others said they got WMDs in Iraq. Okay, go after the bastards. Go get them. We were wrong. You ever watched Charlie Wilson's War? It's an interesting, or read. I mean, it was a book, and then it was made into a movie. I was a baby. I wasn't around at that time in history. But we armed Afghanis back then to help defeat the Russians. How did that work out ultimately? It concluded basically with Charlie Wilson, member of Congress, who helped advocate the idea of arming Afghan rebels to help drive the Russians out, because Russia was our shared enemy at the time. The thinking was, well, perhaps we can have some kind of friendship or relationship with the Afghanis. And again, folks, I'm oversimplifying this. This is nuanced stuff, and I understand you people that study war and combat and history. I'm not trying to become a historian or professor here, but I'm speaking in generalities. What ended up happening? We dump a Brinks truck of money and armament into Afghanistan, and then ultimately it turns around and bites us right in the butt decades later. And then they become, then we got, lo and behold, that gives birth to the likes of Osama bin Laden. And those that would mean us harm, and ultimately who we had to go in and try to destroy. And then we, 20 years we're locked in a quagmire there with no real, we had this idea that we were going to change regimes in Iraq. That didn't work out the way we'd hoped, that everybody was going to vote and it was going to be a democracy. It didn't work out. I don't hear Trump advocating for that. What I hear Trump saying consistently, and I'm defending Trump here, folks. I'm not defending anybody else. I'm not defending Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham or any member of Congress. I'm not defending the military-industrial complex. Yes, I think it's real. I'm defending Donald Trump because I'm listening to his words. And I'm going to do it again. 2017. I just need the first few seconds of this clip. 2017, Paul. Just give me the first few seconds. Trump says the most critical thing here. This is all you need to know about the Trump doctrine.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military.
Yeah. Right. And so let's go again to what he said yesterday. You just heard that one more time. Caitlin Collins asking Trump, are we going to get involved? 2554.
Is there any guarantee that if the U.S. did get involved militarily, that a U.S. bomb could destroy Iran's nuclear program and facilities?
You should every day or anything in life you done it. Look at you. Right. There's no guarantee.
You think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program? Or where's your assessment of that?
Well, I hope their program's going to be wiped out long before that. But they're not going to have it.
He is not saying anything about regime change. Fast Eddie is your host incorrect.
No, not anything that he has said, any statement that has been made has all about Iran not having a nuclear weapon. That's it.
16% of Americans want, only 16% of Americans want the U.S. involved in an Israel-Iran. Who's advocating for war? I know that there are some. Yes, there are some. John Fetterman. John Fetterman just said yesterday we ought to go in and bomb the hell out of their leadership and get rid of them. Kill them, murder them, axe them. And yes, Lindsey Graham too. Not my position. Not most Americans' position. Nuance is important. And nuance has left the discussion.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.